Hello everyone, I hope you are all doing well. Today I have start a new series of bedtime stories for all of you. Today I bring you Epic Tales, African Myths and Tales. I actually possess several of these types of books, all in a variety of colors like this and a variety of mythologies and authors actually. They're all quite intriguing and I believe you will all enjoy them. So, with that, let us begin. African mythology. Introduction. Africa is a vast continent, over 3 times the size of the United States of America, incorporating a huge expanse of desert and scrubland, mountains, valleys, rainforests, swamps, rivers, and lakes. For much of its history, however, a large part of southern Africa has remained cut off from the outside world. The Sahara Desert, have a tongue twister today apparently, which divides the north from the south, covers nearly 1/3 of the continent, presenting an almost impossible obstacle for even the most resilient traveler. North Africa stretches from Morocco to Egypt and down through the Nile Valley as far as Ethiopia. This rich and fertile region nourishes a distinctly Mediterranean culture dominated by Muslim and Christian religions. Africa south of Sahara, the area sometimes known as Negro or Black Africa, extends from the east and west Sudan down through the savannas and central rainforest right into South Africa. It has a great mixture of cultures and religions. It is this part of the continent from which the myths and legends of this book have been selected. Isolation, then colonization. This sub-Saharan Africa is a land of colorful contrast and diverse cultures, many of which have existed for hundreds and even thousands of years. Archaeologist research has revealed that by 1200 BC, rich and powerful civilizations, such as that of ancient Egypt, had developed in the northern part of Africa. Nothing now remains of these impressive empires, but their customs and beliefs are well recorded. Relatively little is known, on the other hand, of the earliest history of the peoples living south of Sahara. Geographical isolation dictated, that these people developed largely by themselves. Written culture became widespread only in the 19th century. Before that time, the art of writing was completely unknown to Africans in the equatorial forests and the south. Europeans remained ignorant of the region's rich history until the 15th century, when the Portuguese arrived on the west coast, landing at the Cape of Good Hope. Before long, they were transporting thousands of African slaves to Europe and the Americas, a lucrative trade that continued until the mid-19th century. During the late 19th century, white settlers, among them the French, English, and Dutch, began to explore further inland, and throughout the 1880s and 1890s, they competed ferociously for ownership of territories rich in natural resources. Craving up the continent between them. By 1900, almost all of Africa was in European hands, remaining under European control until the 1950s, when the colonies began to demand their independence. The radical changes forced on the African continent as a result of colonialism and the slave trade led to the destruction of many traditional societies, which have evolved over the centuries. Much of information on Africa's culture heritage remains buried forever, since there are no ancient books or documents to enlighten us. African storytelling. But Africa has always had a powerful tradition of storytelling. Before a European way of life prevailed, the old religions, rules, and customs provided the raw material for those tribesmen who first prompted this extremely colorful oral culture. African people have preserved with their storytelling and continue to leave records of their history in songs and stories they pass down from parent to child through the generations. Stories are commonly told in the evening when the day's work is done, accompanied by mime and frequently music. I believe that's actually a typo. They're an important medium of entertainment and instruction woven out of the substance of human experience, and are very often realistic and down to earth. The first African stories to reach Western ears were written down only at the turn of the century, when a number of missionaries, anthropologists, and colonial officials arrived in Africa and made a concrete effort to record descriptions of the rituals and ceremonies they witnessed, and to transcribe as faithfully as possible tales told to them by old and young Africans before they had disappeared altogether. Some of these committed scholars wrote down what the elders told them about their gods, and man's understanding of his relationship with the gods, while others transcribed narrative myths, fables, poems, proverbs, riddles, and even magic spells. A diverse mythology. No real unified mythology exists in Africa. However, the migration of its peoples and the political fragmentation and the sheer size of the continent have resulted in a huge diversity of lifestyles and traditions. Literally thousands of completely different languages are spoken, 2,000 in West Africa alone, between the Senegal River and the headwaters of the Congo River. A complete collection of all myths of the African peoples would fill countless volumes, even if we were to ignore the fact that the collection is being added to all the time by modern-day enthusiasts. To give a useful summary of the main characters of African mythology is therefore an extremely difficult task, but broadly speaking, a number of beliefs, ideas, and themes are shared by African peoples, embezzled by a creative spirit unique to a tribe, village, or region. Nearly every tribe has its own set of cosmological myths, tales which attempt to explore the origin of the universe, the unseen forces of nature, the existence of God, or a supreme being, the creation of mankind, and the coming of morality. Other stories detailing the outrageous adventures and antisocial behavior of one or another trickster figure are also common to nearly every tribe. Moral stories abound, and animal fables, in particular, are some of the most popular of all African tales. This book is divided into 3 sections, containing only a cross-section of African tales. It is intended to provide an introduction to African mythology, and is in no way a comprehensive study of its subject. A selection of creation stories, animal stories, and tales which amuse and teach has been made with the aim of and providing as interesting and entertaining an overview as possible. But first, we will outline a little more about some key African mythological, goddamn that word today, beliefs and traditional practices. Origins of the world. Supreme God. Despite its rich diversity, many African myths contain related themes, including gods and the origins of the world and humans. Most peoples in the tropical and southern Africa share the hazy notion of a supreme sky god who originally lived on Earth but moved up to the sky by means of a spider's thread when humans started misbehaving. Earth and water are invaluably goddesses. For the Yoruba, I'm going to say I said that wrong. I'm not going to lie. Yoruba, Il is the goddess of earth and mother of all creatures. Yamja is the goddess of water. Her messengers are crocodile and hippopotamus, and her daughter Aji is goddess of the Niagara. Seriously, some tongue twisters today. For some reason, river from which Nigeria takes its name. The great serpent, given the prevalence of dangerous snakes in many parts of Africa, it is hardly surprising that several peoples talk of creation in terms of a huge serpent, usually a python, out of whose body the world and all creatures came. Actually, weirdly, this sounds like similar to other mythologies I have read. In northern sea areas, the sky god first made the cosmic serpent. This really sounds like the world tree, whose head is in the sky and whose tail is in underground waters. In central and southern regions, the perennial serpent Chinzazi is identified with the rainbow. Oh yeah, this definitely sounds like Norse mythology to a point. Very little bit, but a little. Whatever shape gods intermediately took, it is common for God to create sky and earth first, then fire and water, thunder and lightning. After these elements, the Supreme Being made the first living beings, a human, an elephant, a snake, and a cow. Interesting. In other legends, the Supreme God first sent rain, lightning, locusts, and then twins. Twins are often referred to as the children of heaven. In some parts, though lucky, in others very unlucky, and in the past have been killed. First man and woman. A widespread belief among the Zulus is that the first man and woman burst out of a reed. Others say from a tree, yet others from a hole in the ground. To the west of Lake Nyanza in the Malawi, many peoples do not speculate on this creation. The Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania, really some of these words, have a story about a time when meat hung down from the sky for people to eat. Okay, I really want that to be real. When it moved out of reach, people built a bamboo tower to the sky. To their surprise, sky messengers came down with 3 gifts: a bow to shoot the new wild animals in the bush, a plow with which to till the land in new seasons of wind, rain, and sun, and a 3-stringed fiddle to sing to in their leisure time. Other tales talk of earth and sky being connected by a rope by which God sent down cattle. In other creation stories, the world passed through the 3 ages. First was an ideal or golden age when gods, humans, and animals lived in harmony, a sort of celestial nirvana. Then came the age of creation, in which the supreme god separated sky and earth, with the latter intended to mirror the harmony of the former age, and humans formed in God's image. But it did not work out, for humans were fallible and caused destruction, so introducing death. The Shidi say humans set fire to the bush, so killing each other. The third age is the modern age, where gods and humans live separately, and people have lost their divine virtue of immorality completely. Throughout their myths and rituals, people are constantly trying to recreate the long-lost golden age. Witchcraft and sorcery. Sorcery has always played a big part in mythology all over Africa. Just as the difference between gods and spirits is blurred, so is the distinction between witchcraft and sorcery as conscious craft. All that can be distinguished is the good or evil intent on the part of the person working the magic. The term doctor, as in witch doctor, basically denotes a person skilled in any art or knowledge. So the doctor may be a diviner, herbalist, sage, storyteller, conjurer, or dancer. Some tribes claim that the doctor is someone who develops special powers after a serious illness, during which time he communes with the spirits, having come close to death. Thereafter he is able to see spirits that are invisible to ordinary mortals. After the apprenticeship to a professional and an initiation, he becomes skilled at dancing, singing, and chanting, and is called upon to perform at funerals and other ceremonies. The trance is a familiar phenomenon among many tribes. It is introduced by doctors, either spontaneously or by chewing certain hallucinatory herbs, inhaling their smoke, or drinking a concoction which gives them superhuman strength and power to know and see what others cannot. The trance state may be caused, people believe, by a person's spirit leaving their body, traveling off into unknown regions and being possessed by spirits of the dead, so that when he returns, he begins to speak in a strange way, telling of the wonderful things he has seen. It is the possessing spirits that enable him to cure an illness, bring rain or luck in hunting. Such spiritual doctors have often had an exotic, even unkempt appearance, letting their hair grow, smearing it with oil or orky, and adoring it with shells, feathers, charms, the insignia of their profession. They may have a magic wand in the form of a zebra tail on a stick, which they wave about during exorcisms or other operations. The fly whisk, carried by some African leaders, is a remnant of this fusion of chieftainship and magic. Sorcerers and witches. Sorcerers and witches are naturally evil and perform dark magic out of a hatred for people. Their tools are the spirits they control, and they can enslave people by causing their death, before reviving them as the living dead. Zombies, from the Congo word zombie, meaning enslaved spirit. They also make fetishes possessed by servant spirits, which fly through the air and attack victims. Often the victim dies of fright merely by seeing such a monster approaching. Witches can change into animals at night, or have animals as their familiars, especially baboons, hyenas, leopards, or owls, and they can be seen flying through the air at night, with fire coming out of their backsides. Their aim is to devour human bodies, dead or alive, but they can also change others into animals and be at their service. Mostly they brew poison, put it in the victim's food, and enslave his or her spirit. The Malaki, all of which translate approximately to sorcerer, of Central Africa, creates invigorable magic mixture from ashes of dead bodies, such as a ritual dance, around it and then mixes it with the victim's food or beer. Sometimes he adds the victim's fingernails, hair, or earth from his footsteps to the indragabo, wrapping it in leaves or burying it beside the victim's house. The victim's spirit will be forced to go and live in the indragabo while his body decays. Often the Malawi can be heard laughing in the darkness. The forest. Other Central African peoples regard the forest as being the other or spirit world inhabited by dwarf demons or imps, the Eox. Ecox. Wait a minute. Tell me that those little things from Star Wars are actually from African myths and mythologies? Okay then. Who feed off human flesh. Anyone entering their world. Actually, it's just the word, maybe. Anyone entering their world must perform certain rituals. Sorcerers crave a fetish or a piece of wood taken from the spirit world, which therefore possesses magical properties, and use it to kill their enemies. Every tree has its spirit, which survives in the wood, even after it has been chopped down and made into a hut, drum, or boat, without the spirit's goodwill. The carved item will bring only bad luck. Foretelling the arrival of Europeans. More than one witch doctor is said to have foretold the coming of Europeans to Africa. A certain prophet, Mulanga of Alari Zahari, foretold that there will come people who are white and shining with bodies like locusts. Another, Padau, a chief of the Bapali, South Africa, prospired the arrival of Boers. Red ants will come and destroy our land. They will have baskets, hats on their heads. Their feet will be like those of zebras' boots. Their sticks will give out fire. They will travel with houses drawn by oxen. Missionaries in the early 19th century left reports of seers who made their prophecies during a trance of illness. One missionary, Reverend E. W. White, referred to the prophet Mulami, who died in 1815, as the greatest fixture in Bishuto history. Muhalati said he saw a cloud of red dust coming out of the east, consuming all tribes. Animal myths. Animals play a key role in mythology, not only in Africa. African slaves took their stories around the world, often as fables, and adapted them to their new environments. The Uncle Remus stories of America's southern states. Beer Ribbit was originally the hare. Beer Turpin was originally the Taurus. Came from West Africa, as did the and Nancy Kakaku and Nancy Spider Tales of the Caribbean. Originally told by Ashanti, Yoruba, Igbo, and Dahomey, it is believed that the Greek slave Aesop originally came from Ethiopia. In the oldest versions of African myths, the characters are mostly animals, such as the serpent involved in the world's creation. At this stage, there are entities of supernatural size and strength. Nazi, the spider, can climb to the heavens to communicate with Name, the sky god. Simba, the lion, is a poet god from whom several African chiefs trance their ancestry, such as Halati Salih, the lion of Judah. Similarly, some Zulu chiefs have claimed descent from the python. Some clans bow before a python and dress it as Your Majesty, offering it sacrifices of goat. In Mozambique, wow, some of these words, there are traces of the worship of Sangu, the hippopotamus, a goddess who rules an underwater realm of lush, flowering meadows. She protects pregnant women and has to be sacrificed to by fishermen. And no other reasons. Mali, Gwene, the sky god Baro, sent down the antelope to teach the Bambara people farming skills, hence the many wooden carvings of the sacred antelope. According to the Bushmen of the Kahiri Desert, the mantis stole fire from the orchard and pressed it onto humans. The mantis is credited among the Kanajis of Southwest Africa of inventing language through which animals and humans converse. Can converse. Half animal, half human animals. As myths evolved, animals became half human. Half animal characters can be either good or evil, depending on their whim or veneration. They can take either form and foster human children, often coupling with human beings. Such children display both human and animal characteristics, so they can catch prey and speak animal languages. The human offspring of lions are particularly gifted. They can hunt at night, and they know the bush lore and power of putting a spell on game. Since no animal dies without the gods willing it, ordinarily mortals fear such half-human offspring, for they are brave, fierce warriors possessing magic and charms. Women love lion men, who often become great rulers. As for lion women, they grow up to be irresistibly attractive to men who fall in love with them. The men, however, can end up being eaten by their wives. Lions are so potent that even a lion's eyelash can give a woman power over her husband, that she can have children merely by instructing his mind to do so. Tricksters. At the third stage of evolution of myths, animals lose their divine qualities and take their animal shape, but act as humans do. With their own characteristics, two particular animals stand out as tricksters, who are cunning to outwit more powerful beasts. The hare and the tortoise. In parts of Africa, where there are no hares or tortoises, the Congo River basin, the trickster is the little water antelope, the jackal, or the turtle. The lion, elephant, and especially the hyena are the file. Their brute force and stupidity being no match for the nimble wits of the hare or the slow, patient wisdom of the tortoise. Even the hare, in the famous race, is overcome by the tortoise's quite dogged determination. A person of exceptional intelligence among the Igbo is referred to as a Mabai, and among the Nabi is Ikaki, both meaning Taurus. Not only is the Taurus harmless, eating only fallen fruit of the forest, he is particularly immune from attack, and his silent nature implies mystery and veiled purpose, qualities valued in the human world. Sacrifice and offerings. All around people are spirits who have to be appraised and gods who have to be placed. In the past, this could mean anything up to and including sacrifice. Since life is based on a balance in nature, there must be as much giving as receiving. Someone has to die in order that others may live. If rain does not come, sacrifices and offerings must be made to induce the rain god to end a drought. Every tribe and region has its rituals and special doctors, priests, and diviners who know exactly what offerings must be made. In many clans, it is the traditional duty of the eldest son to sacrifice sacrifice to the clan spirits, those of his father and grandfather. Without such sacrifices, the people could die, and the sacrifice must be gladly offered. Otherwise, it is not acceptable. The common purpose of sacrifice is to create, celebrate, and to or restore good relations with the deity of ancestral spirits. Usually, the gods will be sacrificed with nothing less. Usually, the gods will be satisfied with nothing less than the slaughter of an animal, normally chicken, goat, or lamb. The Dugon people of Mali, for example, have a special sacrificial rite called Bulu, meaning to revive, restoring the community relations with the universe of life. The living sacrifice has a soul, Kinuku, and vital force, Nanyama, as the victim's blood flows into the earth. It creates a Nanyama, the deity, thus nourished, has the will to get back into the sacrifice's liver, which is eaten by the priest in a ritual meal, thereby consuming the divine energy. These sacrificial rituals were transported with the slaves to the Caribbean, especially Haiti, where the sacrifices, usually of chickens, come under the name voodoo. Mediums. Another sacrifice common to Mali is intended to induce the rainbow god, Sari, a multicolored serpent, to send rain. A white ram is sacrificed by a forked tree and has its blood sprinkled over the tree, as dances circle the tree. The sky gods take possession of some of the dancers and speak through their mouths. These oracles or mediums often become possessed women who speak in a strange voice they do not understand, and which has to be interpreted by a priest. Besides inducing rain, people consult them on sickness in the family or on domestic animals, sterility, floods, or drought, or even marital problems. Divination. Why can't I say that word today? When the deity does not speak through a medium, it may give signs or omens which can be read only by trained diviners, who will make offerings or sacrifices to reveal knowledge that is concealed from ordinary mortals. It also includes advice on the best time for hunting, sowing, harvesting, fishing, migration, or performing sacrificial rituals. For divining, they may read the stars, throw lots, study lines in soil or sand, or examine the entrails of a sacrificed animal. Some diviners have a divining board on which they cast palm nuts or stones. The diviner also has to be consulted on sacrifice in the case of sickness and after a funeral to remove the contagion of death. Another occasion for special offerings and sacrifices when going hunting or gathering in the forest, which is inhabited by terrifying spirits, monsters, and ghosts. Among the Yamashio Ganhana, the forest spirits are called the... I'm not even going to try that word. In the forest org, Shashabansham. It is a hairy giant with large, blood-red eyes and enormous feet that trip upward travelers. The hunter has to be on good terms with all these horrifying creatures. He needs special offerings from them all, as well as charms and fetishes to ward them off evil. In the past, it was not unknown for soccer teams, notably in South Africa, to offer sacrifices to the gods to let them win or to place fetishes in the goal of the opposing team, hoping their spirits would let goals in. Ifa an issue. Among the Yoruba people of southern Nigeria, sacrifices are often made to two contradictory gods simultaneously. Ifa an issue. Ifa is the god of wisdom, knowledge, and divination. At the time of creation, he came down to earth with the other deities to establish order. He settled on earth, married, and had 8 sons, all of whom became chiefs of the premises of Yershabal land. Ishu had been sent into the world by Olorame, the supreme god, to test people and examine their real characters. One day, Ishva felt insulted by his sons and wanted to live in heaven, so leaving the mischievous god Ishu to cause quarrels, make women barren, and trick people into insulting the gods, for which they had to pay sacrifices. In despair, Ishva's sons went to heaven to beg their father's help. He refused to return, but he did give each son a divining board and set up 6 palm nuts as divination tools. It is through these palm nuts that Ishva conveys the will of the gods to the people. Death. The 3 vital questions concern all African cultures. How did death come into the world? Why do people die, and what happens after death? Despite the widespread disparities in cultures, there is general agreement on the answers to these questions. Death was not part of the original scheme of things in African myth. It came later, typically as a result of a blunder, a mistake, in message or late delivery of a message. A common myth is that from southern Africa about the moon goddess who returns after dying. She originally descended on earth and on life and death, promising that people would be restored to life. The message is sent to earth with the chameleon or mantis, as well as the hare. The hare is first to arrive but gives a garbled message, thus depriving human immortality. Since gods can never revoke a message once delivered, the Ibu have a similar tale, with a message sent by the great spirit Ku. Here, the dog dawdles and the sheep muddles the message. Origin of death. Some myths put the blame of the coming of death on women. The Buluban Chunga say a girl disturbed her grandmother as she was discarding her old skin, so breaking a sacred ritual. The Ganda people to the north lake of Victoria blamed the supreme god's daughter Nambi, who married a mortal, went back for grain to feed her chicken, and was overtaken by her brother Walubu Death, who then accompanied her to earth. The dinky herders of southern Sudan tell that the spring god gave a grain, a mullet, to an earthy couple, but the woman Abuk was too greedy and accidentally hit the god with the end of her hoe, after which he sent a bird to cut the rope of life, linking heaven and earth. Why people die. In a continent where morality is high, the cause of death, especially premature death, is often attributed to evil spirits, spells cast by agents of misfortune. The all-prevailing fear of death provides work for diviners, witch doctors, shamans, makers of charms, amulets, and fetishes. Death ancestors, too, play an important role. Often when someone falls ill, it is supposed that an ancestral spirit has been offered and sent the sickness, that some human enemy has put a spell on the victim. In either case, the result is more work for the various doctors. Afterlife. It is commonly held believed that death is not the end of existence, and instead that it is merely the moment when a person can no longer dispose of his body, except as a ghost or spirit in someone or something else's body, whether animal, tree, plant, river, or wind. The living sometimes see and walk and talk to the dead in their dreams, or receive messages through omens or mediums. The spirits of the dead usually remain near their funeral place for a time, whether under their hut, usually with chiefs, in forests or rivers, or even inside hyenas, who frequently devour corpses. After a while, the spirits depart for the land of the dead. It is the duty of the spirit's sons to serve ancestors by erecting a shrine where they regularly place offerings of food and drink. If the rites are neglected, the ancestors will blight their descendants' lives for several generations, Tsanina, family spirits. Those of father, grandfather, and material uncle are called Makagu. These spirits are ventured for 3 generations, after which time they merge with a host of spirits called Kinyamla. I'm not even going to try to say that. The underworld. Many peoples believe that the dead live in the bowels of the earth, very much as they did on earth, tending pleadful herds of wrinkled cattle. The Yubu people, the earth goddess Aegea, is also goddess of the underworld, where she rules over many deities, well, the ancestors buried in her womb. Sometimes when she is angry, she moves forests, mountains, and rivers. The relative descendant of the deceased have not made proper offerings to her when burying the corpse. In Fontaine from the West Africa, the rainbow serpent Adi, who supports the earth and the ocean, will one day run out of food. He will then chew on his tail and cause the whole earth to topple into the sea. The Dahaman people believe that in the underworld social status remains unchanged. The chieftain continues to rule and the slave to serve forever. The Bushtus believe that the dead wander silently and dully about their green valleys, called the Abyss, with no emotions of joy or sorrow. The Shalimi name for this spirit land is Kuzumo. On the other hand, in the underworld, there is no retribution for earthly sins and no distinction between heaven and earth. Paths to the underworld. The land of the dead can be reached through caves or holes in the ground. The Pulidi of South Africa traditionally claim that the gateway to Mozuma, the underworld, lies on their land and can be entered by anyone sufficiently daring. Mistake, the two people go together, holding hands as they enter the pass and shout. Spirits clear the way and will throw stones at you, and they pass by without difficulty. Many are the adventures of living beings who accidentally stumble into the underworld. They often follow a porcupine or some other burrowing animal they are hunting into its holes. This happened to a hunter more in Uganda and to a Zulu hunter, Ukama. The hunters return unharmed to tell the tale, but never find their way back down again. And that will be all for today. I will continue this tomorrow for all of you. I hope you are all well, and I hope you all sleep well. Please do remember to like, subscribe, and comment. I do apologize for my sometimes horrible pronunciation and reading skills, but thank you for being with me today, and I hope you enjoyed. Until next time.